And we're streaming live. And that's why I don't sing for a living. And everything is working now. If you're watching this live, then you can join us on the chat room at professormesser.com/live. If you're watching on the replay, you can fast forward about 10 minutes and the actual show will start. Or you can hang out here and watch the pre-show for 10 minutes while I try to figure out what I'm doing. My free A+ study group is right now. Click here to join us. See, it's completely automated in that I do it. Save that. Could not get a camera to come out. In fact, this camera that you're looking at is the one that would not work today for some reason. I had to do some things. I had to go into my TriCaster and change the format. For some reason, it was not locking on the video. And finally, when I flipped back to the original format, it worked fine. That took a bit of time. And I'm not sure what's up with that. Hello, chat room. Hello, greetings. Hello. Welcome. Make yourself comfortable. We'll be getting started at the top of the hour. If I can get my microphone where I like it instead of messing around with it. There you go. Audio sounds good here. I should probably check audio on the web site /live. Let's try it myself. If I can listen in, probably turn it down a little bit for all you folks. Let's see if I can hit the play button before everything happens on my screen. And let's see what we sound like. I can listen in, probably turn it down a little bit for all you. Yeah, it sounds good. I like it. Not doing 1080p yet today. I'm planning on 1080p, just not today. Let's do a camera check, shall we? Hi, how you doing? Hi, good to see you. Camera 3, camera 4, camera 1, camera 2, camera 3. Yep, that's good. That's good. In fact, let's start up a thing there. We can come back over here. See how that works? See, that's all good. It's my Socrative here. All right. It's alive. It works. Even got everything working up front this time. Both of my cameras, both of my displays up in the front are working. They weren't working earlier. Last month, I guess. I don't know what's up with that. Let's start a quiz. Let's do the A+ study group, teacher, paste, disable student names, and start. So now you can go to Socrative and start if you want to. Okay. Are we ready? Need some warm beverage. Well, I'm ready. I guess I'm ready. We're going to find out if I'm ready. I need my yellow thing on the screen. There we go. It's hard to see where you're looking. I see the chat rooms over here. If you're watching this live on YouTube, and you are live on YouTube watching this, you'll notice there's no chat. You have to go to professormesser.com/live to see the chat. So there's that. Let's change this. All right. I'm digging it. Let's change the air conditioning a little bit. All right. Now we're ready. Now we can do a show. Hello, Rebecca. There's a lot going on. Since Monday was a holiday here in the United States, everything that normally happens on Tuesday just outside my studio is now happening on Wednesday, which is today. And I generally don't have things happening on Wednesday because I'm doing the live stream. But of course, everybody who is doing something is here because my studio is at my house. So all of these things that are happening at my house, because there's always something, right? There's always somebody who has to fix a thing or do the maintenance on the stuff. You know, all of those things are happening. So there is a hubbub of activity that is just outside what you can see right here, that you don't know the whirlwind that is going on. You won't hear it either because this is so soundproofed. And the microphone I'm using doesn't really, you go off mic, you can't really hear anything I'm saying. So they could be cutting down trees outside and we probably wouldn't know. but I know they're there. So it's a thing. There's a mental thing. There's ants, all outside running around doing things. Oh, okay. The tweet went out. So people will join us. Probably the Facebook went out. Let's see if the Facebook went out. Facebook. Oh, how I love you, Facebook. How I hate you, Facebook. Yes, it went out as well. And what else? Probably the Google Plus has gone out. All right. I don't know what it was with this camera today, but it was a thing. Took some jump starting. I've never had to do that before. So it was that 30 minutes before we go live panic time where, what am I going to do? It's not working. Well, I could go without. And I'm behind there unplugging cables. Well, it works on camera one. If I move it to camera one, it works on camera one. It was something with that camera 2 interface. No matter what I plugged into the camera 2 interface, which is the one you're looking at, that input 2 would just not register that video. And it currently runs over a coax cable called SDI, which is pretty much what all professional video uses. It's not an HDMI cable with those crazy HDMI connectors. It's a BNC connector. It locks in. It's coax. So nice heavy run. So you generally don't have cable problems. And I don't touch anything here. So I generally don't run into cable problems. And I've not touched anything there, so I was trying to move the BNC around between camera 1 and camera 2. So the video signal was working into camera 1. I would take it out and plug it in camera 2, nothing. So it was with something with that interface on the video switcher. So I moved it to, it usually runs at SDI 60 frames interlaced. Is the format that this camera is sending. So I changed it to 30 frames per progressive. And, of course, got no video because that's not what the video signal is coming there. Changed it to 24 frames, which would be the UK. And then I changed it back to 60i, and everything worked fine. So I don't know what was up with that. No, Skype will be up in the second hour. I will have the Skype lines up and running. If you try to call in now, it's not open right now. But I will turn those on in the second hour, so you could call in if you would like to. This first hour is just me talking to you. There's not a lot of two-way conversations going on, is there? There is over the web. So you can ask questions in the chat room. Generally, if it's something that's relating to what we're doing, that's a good thing to do. But I'll have the 800 number, the 888 number up in the second hour. Yes, we are using Socrative today. I'm not looking over in the general chat often, but it is on my screen. So I will answer Marty and tell him, yes, we are using Socrative today. And it will be up. In fact, that's what you can see on my screen right now, is the Socrative answers. Where are they? This is them. There you go. There's Socrative. We will be doing that. How long should you study for the A+ exam? You should study until you know everything. There you go. Grab the exam objectives, go through those, use those as a checklist. When you know everything on the checklist, you're ready to take the exam. On average, most people are probably somewhere between 3 to 6 months. Some people take it in 2 weeks. Some people take it in a year. Just depends on what you know, how much experience you have, how comfortable you are with the materials, how much time you have to study, those types of things. But I think those are pretty good numbers anyway. All right, we are less than a minute away from starting. Recordings are going. You can see the Cylons are going down there. I've got a recording going here. Audio is up. Presentations are going. I think we're ready to do this thing, aren't we? I believe we are. You guys are about, I think, 20 seconds behind me, 15 or 20. So I'll be starting in just a moment to do this. The room name on Socrative is Professor Messer, Professormesser. You do not need a username or password. You do not need to register. All right, let's do this, shall we? Got That's not the right one. Let's do this one. There we go. Let's get this thing started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the June 2016 Professor Messer A+ Study Group. This is my monthly study group where I ask you questions and then you give me the answers. And then we all look together at how we've done. And hopefully at the end of this, we've learned something. If not, maybe you've learned that you're ready to go and take the exam, or maybe you've actually learned something during the Q&A process. Either way, we're both winners. I don't know what that means. I'm James Messer. I'll be your host for this hour. And during this first hour, I'll be asking you those questions. The second hour is kind of our after show. I'll open up the phone lines. You can call in. If you're watching this live online, you can participate in our chat room at professormesser.com/live. And I can see the chats that are coming through. We've been talking in the pre-show about all of those. And we'll also have open in the second half of the hour. I'll give you the numbers for the call-in line. That line is not open quite yet. I'll open that up in the second hour so we can get to those pieces. There is quite a bit to go through today. In fact, here is the studio line. You can make a note for later, which is 855-785-RJ45. That'll be available there. Of course, if you're following us, this will be on a replay that you can watch as well. I always have these replays are always archived to my website. So you can always go to professormesser.com and look at the archives for the A+ study groups, the Network Plus study groups, or the Security Plus study groups that I do. Also, you may want to check us out on the YouTube. Easiest way is to go to the professormesser.com/YouTube. Of course, I have the A+ pop quiz that I send out every day. Best way to get that really is on Twitter. Can't miss it there at professormesser.com/Twitter. And don't forget about my discounted vouchers. Thanks to the folks at GTS Learning. Don't pay full price for your A+, Network Plus, or Security Plus exams. There's a 10% off coupon that you can use for your vouchers at professormesser.com/vouchers. Now, remember that if you already have your A+ certification, then you can also get continuing education credits for this. If you're someone who is accumulating these credits to keep your certification current, this might be a good way to get a few of those. You can find out all about this on the CompTIA website on this really long URL that they've set up. But if you just look for CompTIA Continuing Education, you'll go to the website. What it really says is you can get 1 CEU per hour. So I'll give you 1 CEU for attending this. You can have up to 4 CEUs for A+ that you would use by watching webinars. So you can't sit and watch a webinar, 20 of those, and get your 20 hours. You need to get more than just the 4, but I'm more than happy to give those to you. Sometime in this first hour, I will give you a special code word, and that code word, and I'll give you instructions on what to do with that code word so that you get the continuing education unit credit. You need that code word. That is the secret piece, and you need the process. That's the second piece. So there's 2 things you have to be able to do, and if you can do those 2 things, then I will send you a digital certificate back, really just an email that I digitally sign that says, yes, you did attend, and this was legitimate, and here's your 1 hour of content. So that makes it easy as well. There are, of course, 4 A+ exams right now. You only have to take 2 of them, but you have to choose which 2. Now, I will tell you that the 800 series exams, which have been around since June the 30th of 2016, that retire on June 30th of 2016, is now less than a month away. So if you are thinking of taking the 800 series exams, you have to complete both of them by June the 30th. You can't complete one of them and then take a 900 series later. You can't mix and match. You have to either take the 801, 802, or you take the 901, 902. So if you're somebody who's been studying for a while and you're about ready to take your exams, you can take the 800 series if you know you're going to pass both of them by June the 30th. If you're really just getting started with this, if you're just getting into the process of getting into the A+ content, or you really think you won't be able to make that time frame, absolutely study for the 900 series. Do not study for those 800 series any longer. I'm not even on my website promoting the 800 series as much because you've only got now 30 days before it retires. Now, if you pass your A+ with the 800 series exams on June the 30th, you're still certified for 3 years. The only thing that's really going away are the exams. They are retiring the exams, not the certification. So it really doesn't matter which pair you use to get your certification. You're certified for 3 years, so don't worry about that. I think the difficulty level on either the 800 or the 900 is about the same. I think there's probably some additional information you have to know for the 900 series. There is some information on Mac OS, on Linux. It goes into Windows 8. It does drop Windows XP. So there are some things you don't have to know for the 900 series. If you're someone who's really kept up with the latest Microsoft operating systems, you may find that the 900 series is easier for you. That's completely up to you to be able to figure those out. If you're already A+ certified, you don't have to take the 900 series exams. That's just one of those things. Once you're certified, you're certified. You should never have to go back and take those exams again, which is a nice part about this as well. I'm able to do these monthly study groups thanks to your support. I would not be able to have any of these live events or do any of these free videos unless you're watching them. So thank you for that. Those of you that want to be able to take these videos offline, have MP3 files available, have my course notes thrown into this. I have all of this available. You can check that out at professormesser.com/download901. Now, I also have this live Q&A that we're doing today. So before, I'm going to ask you a question in just a moment. So you need to be able to answer this question, and here's how you do it. It's a great online service called Socrative. So go to Socrative.com. There you see it on the screen, Socrative. The room name is Professor Messer. Make sure you type it all in exactly this way, one word with exactly the spelling, or you won't see any questions. You'll be in a room where nothing is happening. So make sure you type in PROFESSORMESSER to get to that particular room. And when you do that, you will see a question. Here it is, this question, how long you've been studying for your A+ certification. And I'm just watching you reply to it right here on my screen. I see that 30% of you that have answered so far have said less than 3 months, 16% said 3 to 6 months, 13% 6 to 9 months, 11% more than 9 months. Almost 30% of you, almost a third of you already have your A+ certification. You're watching this to either prove to yourself you know the answer to these questions, or maybe the CEUs is what's bringing you here. Either way, it's nice to have you here and being able to do this. And apparently from all over the world, folks in the UK, folks from Guam. My dad grew up on Guam, so it's a place I'd love to be able to get to someday. I hear great stories about him growing up on that U.S. territory. Let's do some questions, though. I see some of you are getting in the answering. There we go. You're now getting into the Socrative. I could see the numbers ramping up here. Well done with that. So that's one of the things that we will absolutely step through, and I'll give you an idea how to get these questions answered with Socrative. Once you're in there, you just stay there. You don't have to do anything. You just go to one screen, and the questions will just automatically pop up for you, so you don't have to do anything there. So let's do a question. Let's jump right into the A+ questions. I've been talking long enough, haven't I? I get your emails. I know when you tell me that I've talked long enough. Let's answer this one. Here you go. Which of these would be the best choice for improving the read and write times to a spinning hard drive? And if you go to Socrative, there are a number of options. So don't answer this in the chat room. Don't blurt it out. Don't Google it. We're going to go into this as if we're sitting in the exam, and we have to answer this based on the questions that are given to us. And I'm trying to ask you questions that are very similar to the feel and the style of the questions that you'll get on the exam. So let's also see how we do with this. The possible options that you have are check disk, defrag, format, disk part, and msconfig. So you've got 5 options here to choose from. Generally on the exam, you get 4 options. I like to add an extra one somewhere in there to really make you think about what the possible options might be. So I try to make these a little bit even harder than what you might get on the actual exams. So all you have to do is go to Socrative.com. You go to the Professor Messer room, and you will be able to answer this question, which of these would be the best choice for doing this. Kind of starting off with an easy one, I hope. I think most of you might know the answer to this one. You've probably done it before in your spinning hard drives. This is it's a utility and a thing you have to be able to know for the 902 exam. So this is definitely a 902 question, and being able to know these pieces. Whenever you're getting outside the scope of hardware and networking, you really get into the 902, which is really operating systems, security, that type of thing. So let's see how we did with this one. I'm going to choose, how do we do? And yep, 86% of you. I try to shoot for 50, so I made this one way too easy for you guys. It's okay. It's the first one. We're starting off with an easy one. So defrag 85% of you, I think we can call it at this point and say, yes, defrag is the best choice for improving read and write times to a spinning hard drive. Check disk, 7% of you said check disk, and that is a possible answer. There are times when running a check disk could improve the read or write times because it may be able to go through and look at what sectors might be bad. You can scan the physical sectors of a drive, find one that you can't read and write to very well. Check disk will move that data somewhere safer and mark that particular sector as being something that we shouldn't use any longer. And that will improve your performance because you're no longer having to retry the data to that sector. So that is actually a possible answer here. However, I did ask which of these would be the best choice for improving read and write times. Fixing a bad sector is a corner case. It's something you don't often run into. So this would not be the best choice given the ones that were here. And that's an important thing to think about in your exams because there will be a number of options in here that could possibly be the answer, but they didn't ask you which ones could possibly be the answer. It asks which would be the best answer in this particular choice. So make sure you're able to do that as well to go through these. It would not be disk part. That'd be for configuring partitions. Formatting the drive would be initializing the file system. That'd be erasing everything on the drive, all of your data. And msconfig has some great utilities there. In fact, msconfig can get you to defrag, but that's not the best choice. You should be able to go straight to defrag. That was really the right answer here. Defragmentation is when you're having saving files onto your system, and the file systems that we use with Windows will take a file, and if it doesn't have room to put it all in one place, it will scatter pieces of the file all over the drive. And whenever it has to read that file again, it now has to go to every part of that drive to collect it all back together so that it can present the file to you. Well, that obviously takes time. If the drive is spinning around and there's a physical arm that's trying to find all of this data, it takes time to collect all of those pieces together and finally present them to you. And it takes only a little bit of time, but you're obviously accumulating longer and longer amounts as the file is more and more fragmented. So you can use the defragmentation process to put these back together into one contiguous format. And that's an actual word. I get emails on that too saying, oh, you misspelled continuous. It's not a continuous fragment, it's contiguous, where all of the pieces are now put back together in the same place. This is something you don't have to worry about if you have an SSD, obviously, because the SSD doesn't have a spinning drive. There's no arm moving back and forth. There's no delays at reading this data. You can scatter the file anywhere you want on that particular SSD, and it's able to read and write all of those pieces very, very fast. And being able to do that, there is a defragmentation graphical utility you can see here. If you look at the properties of a drive, you right mouse click and choose properties. One of the tabs is for tools, and in that tools tab is the defragmentation utility. You can also go to the command line and simply type defrag, and that will bring up the utility as well. This is one on many devices. Windows 7 is a good example. Windows 8, there are automated tasks that are already configured to run once a week, I think it is, that will automatically defragment your drive during the wee hours of the morning. So you might even want to look at your task scheduler and see if that's scheduled in your system. Be something easy to do. You would not be able to do this on an SSD. It doesn't even allow you to run defrag on an SSD. So it's not even a situation where you have to worry about it. It's something where you never have to consider doing this. Eventually, we'll never have to defrag again. Let's hope that that's the case. The problem is that those spinning drives are so inexpensive and they're getting larger and larger. I've got a ton of spinning hard drives still here at Messer Studios. So something we're always going to be working with. So if you're one of the folks that answered B for defrag, you got that one absolutely right. Well, let's stick with operating systems in the 902 exam. And let me give you another 902 question. This one specifically on Mac OS. So those of you that are now studying for your 902 exam, you know that there is Linux, there's Windows, there's Mac OS. All of those operating systems are on there to some degree. So the question is, which of these Mac OS utilities would be the best choice for fixing a corrupted file system? Well, we know it's not check disk because we were just talking about that, and I gave you that as one of the options. So I've already broken this down and given you a big hint as to what this one might be, because the first option on here is check disk. So we know that that one isn't. Now, this is a great thing to also keep in mind when you're working on your exam. Multiple choice questions you get later in the exam might answer questions that you might have earlier in the exam. That's why one of my big tips is to completely skip over the performance-based questions at the beginning of the exam and take all of the multiple choice questions and then go back to the performance-based, because this is the type of situation you might run into. So let's look at the other options. It might be Disk Manager, it might be Disk Utility, it might be Fixed Disk, it might be Disk Check. Well, you really have to know what the Mac OS uses for file systems to be able to answer this question, because it could be any one of these. If you think you know what the answer is, don't answer in the chat room. Stop Googling Mac OS and disk utilities or Mac OS disk corrupted file system and trying to figure this out. You should instead go to Socrative.com, to the room Professor Messer, and being able to figure this out. Any of these utilities that you might use for disk or for memory, for Windows, for Mac, for Linux, those utilities are very powerful, and it's important that you know exactly which one to go to given what type of question you might be asked on the exam or using these operating systems in real life. You need to know which one of these to use. It makes it easy also for searching. In Windows and Mac OS and Linux, you can just bring up a search prompt and it'll find it, whatever it happens to be. You don't have to hunt down to find a specific thing in the operating system. You can just name it and it will figure those things out. So let's see how we did with this. Which of these Mac OS utilities would be the best choice? Let's find out. How do we do? Well, we've got kind of a split decision. No majorities here currently. We're at 49%. Disk Utility is number one on the list. Fixed Disk, 36%. So it's a good contender. Maybe it's neither of those. 3 of you did say Check Disk. You think maybe he's fooling us and it really is Check Disk. 7% said Disk Manager. 5% said Disk Check. I think Disk Check is hard to say. Therefore, why would they make it? It's hard to say. Maybe it's not the right thing. Let's find out what this particular answer is. In a Mac OS, if you were going to fix something with the disk, it's a utility called Disk Utility. Disk Utility, it's a great tool. It's graphical. It shows you all of the disks in your system. You can create you can take CD-ROMs and DVD-ROMs and create disk images of them. You can take files that you have and create images of those. Very easy to make that happen. And it's a great utility to resolve problems because you can click one button and it'll go through the entire drive and be able to resolve whatever problems it might be. It's kind of like the check disk in a Mac operating system. It's not quite the same thing, but you can kind of think of it that way, at least at a very broad level. This also is able to fix file systems, erase disks, modify partitions, manage the RAID arrays. It's almost like the disk manager in Windows, really. It does everything that the disk manager does. That's a much better comparison, I think, than just check disk. Individual utilities. You combine those together, you've got Disk Utility, and it can do all of those things. And this is my drive. What is on my drive here? I've got apps, photos. What is all the yellow stuff? Other. It's undoubtedly, if I've got that much on other, it's got to be some of the video stuff that I work with. A lot of the videos that I edit create these huge temporary files. And I mean gigabytes of temporary file space. And it just sits there on my SSD and I have to go in and delete it all out after a while. I'll bet that's what that is. Because obviously I created that image while I was in the middle of creating these videos. This is also good if you want to work with disk images themselves. The Mac operating system loves disk image files, DMGs. And so you can convert, modify, change those image files in the Disk Utility as well. So if any of you folks were looking at this one, if you answered Disk Utility as C, the 53% of you, now we got a majority, you got it absolutely correct. It is not Fix Disk or Disk Check. It's not Disk Manager, and it's not Check Disk. It is definitely the Disk Utility. So there would be an easy way to do that. There's not a lot of things you have to do to the disk in a Mac operating system. A lot of the things that you have to worry about in the Windows operating systems with defragmentation and checking those types of things are already covered in the Mac operating system. And there's a terminal command to do everything in Mac because it's Unix. There's absolutely a way to go to the command line and be able to perform any of these functions as well. You don't have to know a lot of those for the 902 exam, but there are a number of Linux/Mac OS command lines you do need to know. I don't know if I'm asking you any during this study group, but make sure you get the CompTIA exam objectives. If you don't have those right now, absolutely get them and make that happen. Make sure you go to. There is a recovery mode that you can start your operating system with to be able to get to these utilities and start it up. So even if your operating system isn't loading, very similar to Windows, where you can go into the recovery console, there's also a recovery process in macOS. There's a recovery process in Linux as well to do those things, because you do need a way to fix the disk if it's not working right. It would not be disk utility. Well, I guess you could actually. I've used disk utility to do that before, because it does bring up a graphical view of that and being able to work with it. Mac OS, it's almost the same thing as the Windows that you know. It's just different ways to do it. Once you know the basic process, it applies to different operating systems. You just have to know the details, like knowing that it's disk utility that makes that happen. Let's do another question, shall we? Let's keep this party going. I have one that's a picture. Here you go. I just say, what's that? I want to be able to do these because on the exam, you could be shown a picture and it may be up to you to figure out what connector is this. Don't answer in the chat room. This is a hard one to Google too. I guess you could Google it. You could 10i it if you really, really wanted to, but I really recommend you just take a stab. Notice this is a fill in the blank. I'm not giving you a list to choose from. And you could absolutely get this on your exam. You could get one of these that's going to pop up, and it just asks you to type in what you think it is. And that's one of the things you have to do here. You have to be specific. I'm asking you for a very specific connector type. If you answer network cable, that's not going to do it. If you answer it's a cable of something, that's not going to do it. A lot of you are getting this one right, but some of you, make sure you look carefully at this. In fact, I think I have a big picture of it so you can really see it. What is this thing? What the heck is that right there? Oh, it's the wrong side. What the heck is that right there? There's a number of connectors you have to know for the A+ exam, both on the computer side, on the network side. There's fiber connectors, there's copper connectors, there's all kinds of connectors. So make sure that you know what those things happen to be. Now, I don't have a way to summarize on one screen what you folks are typing in, but I think the vast majority of you are getting this one correct. Some are not. And so, and some of you are answering the one I think you probably would answer on this one. And that's why I wanted to go through this very specific connector so that you'd be able to see what this actually is. This is an RJ11 connector. This is commonly used for DSL connections these days, although if you have some of the older analog telephones around, you may be using this very small modular connector to connect these traditional telephones to the plain old telephone service or the POTS line. You may hear the telco guys will say, I need a POTS line configured, and they did a plain old telephone service analog line. This is RJ11, registered jack 11. That's the standard. And the way that you really tell what type of connector this is there's 6 positions. And I mentioned the 6 positions because you have to compare this to an RJ45, which has 8 positions. It's a little bit wider. So most of the time, it's only using 2 of these connectors, 2 conductors. So you'll see it referred to as a 6P2C, a 6-position 2 conductor, and being able to work through this. Sometimes they'll have 4 pins stuck in the middle, and it's wired that way in case you have 2 lines of voice that you're running through the same cable. So the physical interface, it may be named differently, but it's really the same physical interface to have these. Let's go back and look at let's go back and look at the actual connectors. So you see 4 conductors on this one. That's a good example of someone who's wired this with 4 separate conductors. You're obviously only going to use the 2 inside conductors specifically. But look, you have to really look closely to see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 positions. There's no copper on the outside positions. But even if you were counting this, you'd know there weren't 8. There's clearly not 8 positions on this one, and RJ45 is 8 positions. So those of you that did answer RJ45, a number of you did answer RJ45, just make a note of how many positions there happens to be on this cable because they look so similar. In fact, you have to be careful when you're plugging in the RJ11 to the back of a computer. There's both a modem and an Ethernet connection. You can accidentally plug the RJ11 into the Ethernet connection because it's a little bit bigger. Obviously, the Ethernet cable won't fit into the RJ11 connector. It's too fat. So there's something you have to think about and worry about when you're working through these for the for the different connector types and being able to understand which ones they are. But you might be asked this on your exam. This is absolutely on the CompTIA exam objectives, so make sure you know about these as well. There are so many connectors to know, of course. You've got tons of different connectors for the computer. You have to understand all of those different RAID types. There's all those operating system things you have to know. Fortunately, I've taken all of this detail from my certification videos and I put them all in one place. And this is my course notes. I have course notes for the 901 series exam. This is a good example of those. You can see all of the detail that I add into these course notes. And I've got them for the 902 as well. I try to just take everything that was in my exam videos, my certification videos, and instead of you writing down these notes yourself, I just wrote them for you. That was the idea. You can, of course, take these notes yourself. You may not want to do that. You may want to create your own notes and do that. Absolutely. These notes aren't designed to replace your book. They're not designed to replace your videos or the other tools that you're using. They're really designed to be that last phase of your study where you've gone through all the books, you've gone through all the videos, and you just need a summary of everything in one place. And that's what I did with these course notes. I have both 900 series and 800 series course notes. You can find them all on my website. And they are available, and they're only $10 a piece. It's a great way to also give back to the site. I make all of my training videos every minute of every course available for absolutely free. I do these free study groups, and some people like to contribute back by purchasing the course notes, which is a great way to do it. And I thank you for your support of the website in doing that. You can find them all at ProfessorMesser.com. From the main page, there's a link to all of the course notes. The A+CN, I think, goes to the 900 series course notes at this point, but you can, of course, click any of the menu options on the page to be able to get to all of those. On the A+ exam, you're going to want to know what all of those different types are. And of course, you will need to know the difference between those RJ11 and the RJ45 connectors. So make sure you know those. And in my course notes, I have both of those. Let me see if I can zoom up on this so you can see it. So in my course notes, there's the RJ11 and there's the RJ45. So you absolutely need to understand both of those and what the differences are. And you can do that all with the course notes. Let's also now shift gears away from interfaces. Let's move over to operating systems again. I already asked you a Mac OS question. A lot of you, when you register for these study groups, I ask you to tell me what you want me to ask you. And a lot of you said, I don't know anything about Linux. I don't know anything about Mac OS. Ask me some of these. So I want to give you a Linux question. Which of these Linux utilities would be the best choice for full disk imaging? See if you happen to know what those are. I give you some options, though. You don't have to fill in the blank with this one. The options are TAR, DD, apt-get, PS, or grep. If you're a Linux person, you probably know this one right off the top of your head. And being able to work through this. This would not be an RJ14. It would be an RJ11. I know some of you would like to pick the nits on the different RJ standards. This is an RJ11, is what we all call it. Same reason we call it a DB9 when it's not really a DB9. It's a DE9. But that's the way the industry works, is we come up with a name and we call it that, and that's what everybody calls it, even if it might be something else. That's one of those things you really do run into in being able to work through all those differences. Do you know the answer? Don't answer in the chat room. Go to Socrative.com to the room name Professor Messer, and you can absolutely answer that there. Some of you already are answering this. Some of you are Googling this one. I can tell because I see the numbers. And when the numbers jump up, I know a lot of you are just clicking away and saying, oh, yes, it's that one. Yeah, and some of you, even if you don't know Linux, you may have run into this one before, especially if you've had to troubleshoot a system and work through a disk image on a system. You've probably run this command before, especially on the Linux side. There's so many live CDs that can repair Windows systems, and some of them will use this command to do that. Let's see what we know about this one. How did we do so far with this one? Let's click the how do we do. And, we're sort of all over the place, although if we go with the majority, 51%, that 50% number I keep talking about said DD. However, we've got a three-way tie in second place for TAR, apt-get, and grep. Only 4% said PS. I don't know why. PS is pretty nice. What is it with that? Don't like it at all? Is it something you run into? Let's talk about full disk images on the Linux side. With Windows, there's so many different utilities to choose from. and many of them are third-party utilities you might get to be able to image an entire Windows disk and be able to recover those images. It's also built into the Windows operating system. It's a very standardized format. You can image a Windows disk, and then you can take that even to a virtualization system and launch it or mount it as a virtual system. Some very nice things that you can do with the built-in imaging in Windows. You can even launch the Windows operating system from the image and run it in the image. Some great things to do in Windows. With Linux, not quite as many functions or utilities, but the ones that are there work exceptionally well. And DD is a very good example of this, that allows you to do full disk images, partial images, manipulate the images, and really combine a lot of different things together. The imaging systems that are in Linux, though, there are some nice third parties that you can use. Parted, you can use Clonezilla. I used to do all of my images, regardless of the operating system I was using in the studio. I would just use Clonezilla for everything. Had a boot live CD that would start Linux up, and then I do everything because I have all kinds of systems, all kinds of operating systems, and I was able to take all of them and really centralize, standardized in one standard format with Clonezilla, which effectively behind the scenes I think is really running a DD. So if you're one of the folks that did answer DD, you answered B on this one, that 54% of you got that one absolutely right. Would not be TAR. TAR is used as stands for tape archive. It is one that would take a lot of files and put them together so that you could archive them, but it's not a disk imaging per se. Certainly not the best choice for full disk imaging. That's another one where I could do full disk images with TAR. Yes, you could, but I asked you for the best choice, and the best choice is DD. apt-get is a utility that allows you to update the files and the systems and the utilities and the operating systems that are running on your computer. So apt-get would be it's an update, sort of like the Windows update. That's one of the flavors of updates you can use on the Linux side. PS looks at the processors, the processing of the system, shows you what processes are currently executing on your computer. And grep is a great utility that allows you to search through files for different types of information. Use it all the time, and being able to do that. So this is a great thing to use for full disk imaging, DD. And it does come in handy. You can take an entire Linux disk and be able to image it off onto a separate partition or separate drive. Very, very easy to make that happen. So if you answered DD on that one, you got it absolutely correct. Let's do another one. Let's shift gears into something that's a little more abstract, where I'm asking you kind of a scenario question. I want you to think about what this thing is, and now you have to apply that into the answer that you might get. The question is, in which of the following would you be most likely to use a Windows PE? Now, this is where you have to now know what a PE is. Don't answer in the chat room. We're all figuring this out on our own. But now you have to go through and know what a PE is so that you can use which of the following would you be most likely to use a Windows PE? Would it be to defragment a storage drive, to modify a registry setting on a locked Hive? Would it be to disable a service from starting automatically during boot? Would it be to filter event viewer entries? Or would it be to perform a backup of all files in the /user directory? And which of the following would you be most likely to use a Windows PE? So that's one of those where you do have to be able to know what most likely is. Because with all of these, I can do all of this in a Windows PE. So this really is one where we do have to step through all the possible things and then choose the one that is the most likely reason for doing this. So if you think you know the answer, go to Socrative.com. You can click on the student login and go to the Professor Messer page. A lot of you are trying to figure this one out. Some of you clicking around. I'm noticing it's coming in very slowly. You're having to go through all of these, think through all the different options, go through here the process of figuring these out. I think you're getting there with these and being able to know what the answer might be. So I'll give you another minute or two. See, got to figure those things out. Being able to get through. Yeah, it is a little bit of a challenge on this one. This one definitely a two-step process. So you have to know what a PE is, and now you have to apply that to all of these pieces. Really, not knowing what a PE is enough, is it? You really have to know how to use a Windows PE. I give you some options for doing that. Some of my Windows 7 videos in another course I do, there's an extensive almost chapter on building and creating a Windows PE. Well, why would you do that? Well, this is why you do that. One of these answers is why you would do that. And some of these you may be able to figure out, and being able to go through all those pieces. This is one where I think some of you do know this one. I can see that the answer's coming in. Some of you have got a pretty good idea. Let me type a few things in here. Let's see if we can know how do we do on this one? Let's see. Let's see how we did. Now I got you back to that screen. We're kind of torn on this one too. Although 50%, if we're looking for that magic number, disable a service from starting automatically during boot. 27% said, no. It's to perform a backup of all files in the user directory. And 11% said, oh, you're both wrong. It's to modify registry setting on a locked Hive. Single digits for defragmenting a storage drive and filtering event viewer entries. So that's one of those you do have to keep in mind when you're working through these. Well, let's talk about a Windows PE and what it happens to be. I did abbreviate that on purpose. We often abbreviate a Windows PE for those to be able to make that happen. Windows PE is a Windows pre-installation environment. It's the version of Windows that runs before Windows is running. You often see one of the most common ways you would see a Windows PE is when you start the Windows setup process. You'll notice you have a graphical environment. You're clicking around on the screen, but Windows isn't installed yet. Well, that Windows type of view that you have is the Windows pre-installation environment. And it's not only good for installing Windows, it's also very good for troubleshooting and recovery because you can effectively start a Windows-like environment without needing to start your actual Windows operating system. This is great for troubleshooting. It's great for changing things around in the operating system. You can even build your own PE, as I mentioned earlier, and even put your own utilities into it. So if you're having a problem with Windows, there's a service that is starting up, and that service that's starting up is causing a problem for everything. You can absolutely resolve this by using the Windows PE. You can launch the Windows PE. It will go into the section or the pieces that you need to know about. Go to the Windows PE launch. Once that's running, you can now go into the operating system, turn off that service, and then restart your computer. And now your Windows PE allows you to get into the operating system without having to actually start the operating system. So fantastic for troubleshooting those pieces. And I think that's something that we should all become more accustomed to using. And we do have to know the PE. These are not the same thing as a PXE, a PXE. PXE is the ability to start an operating system from across the network. That is not the same thing as a Windows PE. So very good question because those look similar. PXE, did you just leave out the X? I did not. PXE is something a completely different in being able to work through those pieces. Every Windows operating system really has had a PE. And Windows 10, of course, also has a pre-installation environment that you can configure and set up as well. So a couple of things you can do. The PEs are very powerful. And there's a number of people that have created their own PEs out there on the internet that you can just download their customized PE and have something there that you could start up your own system without having to build it out yourself. So lots of options out there for you to use as well. I'm able to create a lot of these screens and a lot of these views of the world on my videos thanks to the folks at GTS Learning and their live labs. This is a way that you can get hands-on with your Windows operating system without having all of those separate Windows operating systems sitting in front of you. It's a cloud-based system. It's one that has complete flexibility in what you do, but there are customized labs available as well that you could step through if you're trying to learn something. You can find out about these at professormesser.com/live labs, and I have them running right here. Here's the 902 version of the live labs: installing Windows, retrieving system information, managing system storage, securing Windows account access. So if you ever needed more hands-on, especially for those performance-based questions on the exam, this is a great way to do it. Understand TCP/IP services start part 1. I'm going to click that and start it. And you can see on the screen, I've got these computers on the left side. I'm going to power up each one of those. There's a Windows 7 device. Here's a gateway. In fact, it shows you on the screen what you're powering up. There's a router. There's separate devices. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different computers that are all doing different things that now I didn't have to have 5 different systems or 5 different virtual machines running. I simply click go, and it's effectively starting up a virtual machine right now for each one of these. And that's an important consideration, is all of these are virtualized systems. Also, when you get the live labs, they also include all of the courseware from GTS Learning too. So if you ever wondered, where do I find all of this information to put into my videos, GTS Learning gives me their book. I go through their book and create my videos, and then they also will take my videos and integrate them back into their book. So when you get the live labs, you also get the book, you get sample questions, you get all of this online live labs access, all for $99 for 12 months. It's a great setup, a very nice function to be able to have all of these things in one place. So for instance, this domain controller just started up. I don't have any extra software running on my computer either. It's using the HTML5 capabilities of my browser. So if you have HTML5, a modern browser, you're running the latest Firefox, the latest Chrome, it's running HTML5. So I'm running all of these set up for a remote desktop system as if I'm really sitting in front of the computer. So I can start it up, go to my control panel, choose the appearance. Even this is not part of the lab. I can do everything that I could normally do in any other Windows device. And look how fast it is, because it's just a remote desktop screen. All of the virtualization, everything's happening out there in the cloud. Here's a Windows 7 device, for example. There's my Windows 7 system. We'll bring up the file system. There's the browse around the local disk. So all of this is here, being able to work through it. The labs are set up in here as well, so you can step through the labs one at a time. There's so much here to work through, and they give you a graphical view of what you should be clicking on. It tells you what you should be clicking on. There's a lot to look at, and you can get an hour for free. You can try it yourself before you pay anything. The price is already discounted down because you're coming from my website to $99 for all of that. But if you want to try it for an hour just to see if this is really something you like, go to ProfessorMesser.com/live labs, and you, of course, can go through and do all of that. It's a nice way to also get some nice hands-on without having to set up any operating systems yourself. And I want to thank the folks at GTS Learning for also sponsoring what we're doing here and helping us out with all of our videos and being able to use their books and integrate things back into the books as well. I was looking through their new book today, as a matter of fact, just as a very quick aside, because it just excited me whenever I saw all of these things happening. Let me bring up the book. I was looking through, here's the 901 book that they have. And I was looking through it because what we did is I get their book first and I create, and their books are great. Look at all the graphics and all the different screenshots and the different things they have in here. But what they've done, every part of the book that's a topic, they put a link. So for instance, for USB ports, there are a couple of links here at the top that you could scan that would bring up my video. But if you're on a screen like I am right now, you just click it and it brings up my video on that specific topic and then jumps ahead in the video to where that happens to be. So notice it just starts wherever that particular topic is. So once you read through the book, you then just click it and then you can watch what I say about it. It's the perfect integration of these things. Really great to have that there. And I want to thank the folks at GTS Learning for putting all of that together. Just a remarkable set of resources. Let's now go back to the questions. If I click the right buttons here, I'll be able to get back to those. I got a lot going on my screen right now. Let's do another question. Here's a question for you. Which of the following would best describe a mobile device that measures approximately 5.5 to 7 inches diagonally? It must have a very specific name if I'm asking you for this very specific thing. It's a very detailed question, isn't it? But I've given you a number of options to choose from. Is this a wearable device? Is it a tablet? Is it a smartphone? Is it a phablet? Is it an e-reader? What is it? Which of these would best describe a mobile device that measures approximately 5.5 to 7 inches diagonally? This is one where you do have to know. Don't answer in the chat room, of course. You want to be able to go to GTS Learning, or GTS Learning, you want to go to Socrative. I'm messing up my services. Go to Socrative.com. In fact, I've got the options right here. Go to the student login and go to room name Professor Messer. If you happen to know what it is, you'll be able to click on the right thing and I'll be able to see it on my screen as well. Make sure you go through those pieces and going through all of those. That's good. Warm beverage helps when I'm the one talking all of this time. You can certainly go through, maybe you're trying to figure it in the chat room. We're always trying to figure it out. What is it? Can we get rid of any of these things and take it out of the list? What does it happen to be? So maybe you folks would be able to figure that out as well. Of course, you need to be able to go through and figure out all of these on the exam. There's an entire section on mobile devices on the exam where you have to know what all of these different things are. In fact, everything that I've listed here is part of the exam objectives, and there's more. There's some things I didn't put in this list. I didn't put GPS in this list. You have to know what a GPS is and all of those pieces. Here's the reminder. I have the room there on your Socrata piece. Go to the room name, Professor Messer, Professor Messer. Make sure you spell it right. That's the key, is to spell it right. I always spell it wrong. And then I'm in a room where nobody else is. There's no questions. Let's see how you folks did on this one. Let's click how do we do. How did we do? We're sort of tied for first, aren't we? I'm on the 44%. We got a number one. Phablet came in as 43%, but still not quite the majority, is it? Tied for second. We'll say that between smartphone and tablet. Nobody said wearable, and only 8% said e-reader would be the best description of a device that measures 5.5 to 7 inches diagonally. That's the real key, is knowing what all of these different devices are. And the real key for this question is the length, the size of this that we were talking about, that diagonal screen. That particular size, it's not quite small enough to be a smartphone, but it's not quite large enough to be a tablet. So in this particular case, we're calling them the combination of those two words, which is a phablet. The phablet, 5.5 to 7 inches in the size of the screen. That's about what they are. It's somewhere in between all of those different pieces. It's not absolutely compact. It's not really big. It's somewhere in the middle. And what we're finding is that there's a good middle place for, it's sort of a phone. It does act as a phone. It is so big it acts as a tablet. So that makes sense. I love my mobile phone that's a little bit bigger than most. I like having a larger screen. I think that's one where as the age of the users of these devices gets older and older, the size of the screen becomes incredibly important. For those of you kids that are out there, you haven't run into this before, but you get to a certain age and it becomes very difficult to see things. Your focus becomes really crazy. So you see people holding things far away from them because now they need reading glasses for that. So that's sort of a normal part of life, but now we've got this technology piece that fits into it, and I think that's where the phablets have come from, because it really helps to have something that's right about that size, to be able to have something a little bit larger than what you used to have before. It becomes very, very useful to have that there. And if you are watching this for continuing education units, you should know the word phablet, because that's my code word of the month for the A+ study group. What you need to do is go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. There's a contact us link there. It's really contacting me. In that form that comes up, you need to put your email address. Make sure you spell it right. Put your name. Put that this is the June A+ study group for 2016, because some people go back years and send me continuing education units. It's easier if I know exactly the one you were talking about, and put the code word phablet in there somewhere. And if you want to put a note to me, I read through all of these, so you can also do that as well. I appreciate you sending those and putting the notes in. It's nice to hear from you as well. It's nice to get that other direction, the conversation going to my direction as well. And that's also part of the process. Somebody sent me a note this week that said, how do I get continuing education units? I said, well, you have to watch the video, because me telling you how to do it is part of the process of getting the unit. It's one of those. So also, if you're watching this on a replay, I will give you the credit as well, because now I know you watched it. You don't have to just watch live. You can also watch any of the replays. You can go back and watch all the replays, and I'll send you continuing education units. I usually send them out about once a week. So if you don't get an immediate response, it's because I'm being a little bit lazy. But I will get them to you, I promise. Let's do another one, shall we? Let's go to another question. I've got more here for you. We're getting tight on time, but I want to get through as much as possible. This is a long one. I wanted to give you a scenario of something. And this one specifically deals with permissions. So here's our scenario. A directory in a server is configured with a share permission that allows all users to modify files. The same directory is configured with an NTFS permission that denies all access to the folder. Sounds like two different things going on there. If you connect to the share from a remote computer, what access would you expect to have? So if you think you know the answer to this one, go to Socrative.com. Don't answer in the chat room. Go to Socrative.com to the Professor Messer room. I see you're thinking about this one. A lot of you. Now, the different options that you have are no access, depends on the user permissions, read access, modify files, or full control. So if you happen to know what that might be, you might have to think of that and figuring it out. Yes, there is a limit to how many, well, there's not a limit to how many CEUs I will give you. I will give you as many CEUs as you qualify for. If you're renewing your A+, you can only use 4 CEUs from a webinar type format, which is what this is, in a 3-year period. So if you got more than 4 from me, CompTIA will only take 4. Some people get credit at work for watching these videos, and they get every single time I send them a CEU. I'm happy to do it. Only takes me a minute or two to get these CEUs sent out, 30 seconds or so to get a CEU copied and pasted, digitally signed, and sent over to you. It's easy. So I'm more than happy to do it. You send them, I'll make sure it happens. So let's see how we're doing with this one. Some of you know your permissions. Some of you, I peeked just a moment at how you're doing so far. Some of you really know your permissions on this one. I think there's also going to be many more of these scenario type questions on the exam that you might run into. It's not just going to be how long is this Ethernet distance? Is the maximum Ethernet distance. It's going to be something very specific like this, where here's a thing, here's another thing. Now, what can you do with that? So see if you happen to know what this one is. And good. Some of you are saying, I need some more practice. That's good. It's good when you find something that you don't know. I like it when I get a question wrong. I know that's weird. I don't like it when I get a question wrong on the exam. I like it when I get a question wrong when I'm studying. Because if I get it wrong or I read a question, I look at that question and think, I have no idea what you're talking about. I have no idea what language that is that you're describing in that question. I need to know more about this topic. So it helps me understand where my shortcomings might be. If you have no idea what I'm talking about in this question, you'll know this may be somewhere you have to go as well. But I'll talk about this in just a moment. And being able to do that makes sense, doesn't it? Let's find out. Let's do this. Let's see how we did on this one. I'm going to flip back around and let's see, how do we do? Well, 62%, certainly the largest number of responders, said no access at all. Is it really? Did we get thrown on this one? Did we not? Because really tied for second. Depends on user permissions, read access, and modify files. Almost identical number of people responding for those. And 5% of you said full control, because that's what I got. I got full control. Doesn't matter how you set it up. It's full control. Well, only 5% of you said that, so I'm not feeling real positive about the whole full control part. Let's see if we can answer this question. This really is something where we need to compare the differences between an NTFS permission and a share permission. So let's talk about what the differences are first. If you know these two things, it will help you a lot in answering questions like this. When you go in and look at the files that are on your computer, you obviously probably heard about the NTFS file system. That's how we have created this directory structure on your disk, and we're sticking all of your files on there. If you're local on a computer, then obviously you have direct access to that local disk, and you can go into and look at all of the NTFS permissions and rights that are associated with a file that's on your computer. It's obviously something that's in a disk that you've got access to, immediate direct access to be able to modify or look at any of those NTFS permissions that happen to be there. Because it is with that disk itself, it's the physical drive system, it's the physical file system on that drive. Anybody who touches those files will be subject to the permissions that you're configuring in NTFS. You can't get around NTFS. There's no optional piece. If you're touching the file, you're touching NTFS. Whether you're directly on that machine or whether you're connecting to that file from somewhere else, it eventually hits the NTFS file system. There's no way around it. So the share permissions are a little bit different though. You can create access to people to be able to get to your system from across the network. And you do that by creating what Windows calls a share. I'm going to create a share that allows everybody in my home or my office to be able to access files. But I'm going to limit how much access they have. If they're coming through the network, maybe I'll change how much access they happen to have. So the share access may be different than the NTFS access. So you have to kind of put them together to really figure out what the ultimate access might be. Sounds complicated, doesn't it? That's because it kind of is. It kind of gets hairy, especially if you're somebody administering a server. You have to kind of compare the NTFS and compare the share permissions and then figure out, once you blend them all together, what will the effective permissions be for a particular user that's in a particular group. That's why people who manage Windows servers make some good money, I guess. It's one of the many reasons they do, as a matter of fact. One thing you do have to keep in mind, and this really is the key for this particular question, is the most restrictive setting wins. So if NTFS says no access and the share says full access, there's no access because one of those said no access. So if it says no access, it's no access. Now, if you're local on the computer, the only thing that really applies is NTFS. You're not coming in through the network. You're not coming in through a share. If you're outside of that computer, it's the share and the NTFS. You have to combine those together. And also keep in mind that the NTFS permissions are inherited from the parent object. That's another part of this video. That this slide came from a video that talks about the inherited permissions. I have a graphical display. I have an animation that shows you inherited permissions in this particular video. But the key in this question is this key here, where I said, maybe I'll back up one so we can see it written a little larger. So the directory of server is configured with a share permission that allows all users to modify files. So anybody across the network coming into my computer, you can modify files. But the NTFS permissions on that computer said no access. It denied everything. So it doesn't matter what the share is set to. NTFS says is what's on that local machine. And because it denied everything, the most restrictive setting wins, which means if you answered no access, the 62% of you got that one absolutely correct. That is the one, who's 62%. It would not depend on the user permissions because NTFS said no access. Would not be read access, no access. Modify files, nope. NTFS says no access. So that's why in this particular case, it would be indeed no access for this. It's really a challenge being able to figure out access permissions. It's complicated to be able to go through these and be able to work with it. I think whenever I start looking at someone who administers a server or you're trying to figure out these effective permissions, it does indeed get to be a little bit challenging. And it's not that NTFS is overriding the share. They are combined together to determine what their permissions are. You have to take the NTFS permissions, the share permissions, combine them together to determine what the effective permissions are. It's just that in this particular example, the NTFS permission said no access, which is the most restrictive setting, so it didn't matter what the share said. Now, if the NTFS permissions were set to full access and your share permissions were set to no access, anybody coming in through the network would have no access. People locally on that computer would have full access. How you like that? So NTFS and share, they have to work together, but it also depends how you're connecting to the data. So it's a lot of different things you have to think about, combine them all together to determine what the effective access is going to be. And that's why in this particular case, I told you exactly how everyone was accessing the data. They were coming in from the network. Therefore, we combine the share with the NTFS to determine what the effective permissions are. So that's what you should do every time. Where are they accessing it from? Combine all of the different permissions together that apply, and that would now give you the answer to those particular examples. So those are the pieces that you would know. Let's talk very quickly about where all of this information comes from. It comes from the CompTIA exam objectives. You should absolutely go out to the CompTIA website and grab those exam objectives if you have not grabbed them already, and read through all of them. Make sure you use these. If you haven't downloaded these yet, you're missing out because there is a ton of information in the objectives. I'm going to very quickly, as a matter of fact, show you what these look like because this is so important. I'm going to pull up my 901 objectives just so you can see what they look like. Here they are. I already had them on my screen. There we go. On my screen. There we go. On here, and I look at all of these. Look at all this information that they give you just when you start getting into the exam objectives. People want to know, what do I need to know for my exam? This. No other exam company, no other certification body gives you as much information as CompTIA does for these exams. It's remarkable. It makes my job very easy because I just go through this list and they go, what sizes of motherboards do I need to know? I need to know ATX, micro ATX, mini ITX, and ITX. I don't have to show you anything else. I don't have to show you NLX. I don't have to show you BTX. I don't have to show you any of those others. I focus on those 4 because that's what's on CompTIA's exam objectives, and that's all you need to worry about. CompTIA stays very close to these exam objectives. They don't often go off of this list, which means if you know everything that is in these exam objectives, you're going to pass your exam. You can't help but pass your exam if you can go through this list and check off everything that's there, because it tells you everything you need to know. Someone sent me an email the other day that said, do I need to know Windows 10? No, it's not in the exam objectives. You don't need to know it. Now, CompTIA at any time can change these objectives. They don't often do that. They rarely, if ever, do that. But they can. So make sure you download the latest set of them directly from CompTIA. You go through this list and you'll be able to know exactly what's on the exam. Might also help you in your study process to be able to know exactly what I should study for. Am I ready to go in and take the exam? And unfortunately, I get messages and see messages all the time from people that walked into their exam. And one of the things they say, and it's remarkable to me, they say, I was asked things I'm not familiar with at all. I was asked things I have no idea what they were talking about. Someone said the entire exam was things I didn't understand. Well, they didn't pass, obviously. But how could you have walked into the exam and not gone through this list? Everything is in there. They've almost given it to you. If you know everything, you're in really good shape. I don't consider the questions to be tricky. Some people will say a lot of trick questions. There are no trick questions. There's a lot of questions that ask you about what you need to know as the best answer. And unless you know the content, you're not going to know what the answer is. Some people think that's a trick. It's not a trick. That's testing. That's finding you and being able to go into that process. Now, you may want to know when the next one of these things is. I do one of these A+ study groups once a month. The next one's going to be in July, on July the 6th. I tend to do them on a Wednesday, and being able to get those together. You can always find out when the next one happens to be. Maybe you're watching a replay. This is far into the future. You can always go to professormesser.com/calendar, and I'll be able to tell you exactly when the next study group is. There's a big list there. I also do a Network Plus study group and a Security Plus study group. Normally, I do these 1 week after the other. We're skipping a week this month. So my Network Plus study group will be in 2 weeks, and my Security Plus study group will be in 3 weeks, being able to get those together. This is one where there's a lot to go through. So I like to do these once a month to go through these questions and having them here. Now, this is the first part of our study group. Of course, I'll be around in the next hour to answer questions from you in the chat room and over the phone lines. But of course, you can follow us all the time on Twitter, on YouTube. I've got a lot more Instagram going these days. So you can go to professormesser.com/Instagram and see what's going on in my world. There's also course notes available. Don't forget those on the professormesser.com/A+CN. My thanks also to GTS Learning. Get your free hour of live labs at professormesser.com/live labs. And of course, the calendar will show you everything you need to know for the study group. Can you believe an hour's gone by already? I want to thank everybody for joining us. It's been a great time here. Stick around for the after show. I'll start up the phone lines and you'll be able to call in. I'll also take questions directly from the chat. And maybe we'll see you next month. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on the study group. Thanks, everyone. Everybody take a sip. Everybody drink. Much better. Much better. Let's see if we can get the show started, shall we? The after show. That was a very fast hour of whatever that was. For those of you wondering, yeah, it's that first hour when I give you the special code word. If you have the code word, you have everything you need to be able to get the continuing education unit from me. I'm already seeing the emails come in. There's a lot of emails I'm flipping out of my screen. Yeah, you guys are getting this. A lot of stuff that's there and working. So let's start up the show. Some of you are already calling in. I haven't given you the number yet. I guess I gave you the number earlier. So if you're on there, just hold on to the screening cue there. I'm going to call in myself. This is the fun manual part of the show where I call in and curse my computer for doing this. Let's see if I got this here.
Thank you for calling.
You're welcome. Let's see if I can type things in properly.
Enter your 6-digit PIN number.
See, PIN number is redundant. We do this every month. And I'll type that in.
Welcome.
Welcome. See, this cloud-based system. It's the cloud, everyone. So I now can put up the phone number. There it is. If you'd like to call in live, 855-785-7545. Free on Skype, +1 855-785-RJ45. And you can call in as well. And suddenly the phone lines are full. They're filling up quickly. So let's go to calls very quickly. Let's go to the 661 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Good morning, Professor. This is Anthony.
Anthony, how are you, sir? Haven't heard from you in forever. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. I just got caught up in life.
I feel you. I'm right there with you. What can we do for you today, sir?
Well, I just got back on here with you. So we're in the 901 now, huh?
I guess we are. And, you know, we got less than 30 days. There are a number of people. Interestingly enough, there is this niche of folks that are working very desperately to finish their 800 series up. So there's still a lot of work that they're doing on the 800. But most of the questions I'm asking these days, I've kind of shifted everything to 900 because you've got 3 years worth of stuff to go through at this point for your 800, right?
Right. Okay. So could you put up the CompTIA website to download the objectives?
Yes. In fact, I'll make it easy for everyone. You can go to professormesser.com/objectives. I just put a link up that takes you right there because so many people ask about it. I think it's so important, and I've adjusted that link so it gets you to the right place. So you go there, it'll get you right to the page.
Great. Sounds good. Sounds good. Yeah, I've been repurposing PLRs and putting stuff up on ClickBank.
Nice. So you're really getting into the whole online kind of selling of different people's products and promotions and online marketing and search engine optimization.
Yep, solo ads and all that stuff.
ClickBank, for those of you that haven't seen this before, a lot of people like me, I used to have products on ClickBank myself, have created these amazing products out there that nobody really knows about. And so this is a way that you can promote someone else's product that you like, and then you get a commission for selling it. So if you're good at the marketing side and somebody else is good at the product side, ClickBank kind of puts you two folks together, and it makes it good for everybody.
Yeah, they have a ClickBank University now that they have.
No kidding.
For people to join and learn how to do all this stuff.
Nice. That's smart of them. That's smart. I think that's something that
I've been part of that for the last year and a half now. So
it is a remarkable world, isn't it?
Yes.
A science unto
There's
itself.
So much stuff out there.
And it's changing all the time. You can't keep up. It's
the time changing. All the time changing.
I understand. I feel the same problems.
Yeah. I'm back, and it's good to see you again, and we'll keep on watching you.
Thanks for calling, Anthony. Keep me up to date. Keep checking in. I like hearing from you.
I sure will.
Take care.
Take care.
There's if you've never gotten into that world of online marketing, it is remarkable. It's some of these things that you know about that you've already been working with, these things that you're learning with A+, you'll be able to apply to those. So all of these networking pieces, all of these things about using your computer and the operating systems and editing files suddenly makes the jump onto the internet. It is remarkable. Let's go to another call. We've got another 661 area code. Are you there, caller?
Hello.
Hello. Hi. What's your name?
How are you, sir?
Hey, thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Sorry, thank you, sir. I am Amar from Iraq. I am calling to see. Thank you very much for your offer. You are wasting your time with us.
You're very welcome.
Thank you so much. I've already bought your A+ course note. It's amazing.
Thank you.
It's very useful with studying.
And I thank you for the support.
Now I am. Thank you, sir. I'm keeping watching your videos. Plus, I have already bought the A+ all-in-one certification for Mike Meyer.
Oh, great.
After it, I reading your course notes. I'm planning to take the exam in maybe less than 2 months. And your videos is amazing. We are all of us. Thank you. And by the way, nice new look.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. That is one of those things. Whenever I always think about putting these things out on the internet, and you never know exactly where they're going to go or how they're going to get there. So it's remarkable in Iraq that you're able to make use of those. That's fantastic. What are you working towards, the 800 series or the 900 series?
No. I have already given newest version and up-to-date version. It's in 900%. By the way, I am working with my friends. We are IT team leader in a big automobile group. It contains more than 9 companies.
Nice.
We are working together to passing this exam. It's very, it will be very useful for us in our work. And your videos really help us passing this exam.
That is fantastic. I think that's probably the best way to do it, is to find a group of people who are trying to get the same exact thing done and be able to work through those together. It's one of the best ways to get a certification exam done. Congratulations on that, and good luck with the rest of your studies.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Take care. There's in fact, that's one of the things you might even want to consider doing in your area. If you are, at least in the United States and other parts of the world, there's these meetup.com. There is different user groups that you can attend where you can find people doing similar things to what you're doing. So that may be a good way to find groups of people that are doing exactly that, whether you're in the United States, the United Kingdom, Iraq. I get people calling and talking to me from Australia, South Africa, and other parts of the world. So everybody's studying this. It's an international certification, so it just makes sense. Back to the phones, the 424 area code. Are you there, caller?
Hi, how are you?
Hi, what's your name?
Andrew.
Hey, Andrew. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Yeah, thanks for taking my call. So I've just got a couple questions. I've been working on the 901 exam for just a couple months, and I've started to take some practice exams.
Yes.
I've noticed that some students have some mixed reviews of some of them. For example, Exam Compass kind of has a reputation of being a bit picky. And I'm just wondering if you recommend still doing those. Like, I've worked on some of the questions from Exam Compass, and they seem to get pretty detailed. So are they still worth it, or is it better to use other sources?
It's a tough call. The stuff that's available out in the world is often a mixed bag when it comes to sample questions. For example, some of the websites, Exam Compass is a website that has a lot of sample questions for exams. But as you mentioned, some of them get into you wanting to know the exact millimeters of size of a particular memory module, which isn't exactly the point of knowing that particular size. So that's something I put in my videos, for instance, is how big they are. But that's because the exam objectives ask you to be able to identify one. So I try to put in as many identifiable features of that. Here's the number of millimeters of length and width you would expect to see and how many pins it has at the bottom. But that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to ask you how many pins are in a particular memory module, although there have been exams in the past that have. So it's one of these balancing acts that all of the people that create content for these exams have to go through, is that you don't want to give too little information for fear that you might be asked something like that on the exam, but you don't want to overwhelm you with the minutia, the details of all of these different components that ultimately you may not even need to know for the exam. So we're constantly having to, although it is a violation of CompTIA's exam requirements as a candidate for you to talk about what's on the exam, some people do. And we kind of listen to what people are saying when they come out of the exam, like, wow, I had to know all these things and they didn't even ask me about it. And although they shouldn't be talking like that, I always make a note like, okay, they weren't asking you about those things, at least in not that particular exam. So like I mentioned, it's a balancing act. So I always recommend you get as many different resources as possible. A lot of the books that you might find from whoever the author happens to be have a lot of great questions at the beginning or the end of the chapters. That's another great place to go. I, of course, have my daily pop quiz questions, and I'm actually in the process right now of putting together a compilation of all of my pop quiz questions and a bunch of new questions into a book that I will be able to make available. So I think there's a real need for that kind of content, but one that is more focused on what the real exam objectives are rather than other things that you might find out there. In fact, I'm on a mailing list from another company that puts out a daily pop quiz question that for the 900 series exam is asking me questions about Windows XP. But Windows XP isn't on the 900 series exam. So those are the dumb things you run into constantly that are they really asking me for the right content for the exam that I'm studying for? They may not be. And it's just a hit and miss. And I think what you're seeing is pretty normal, Andrew. It's you're never quite sure what you're reading is going to be exactly accurate. I think it's more you have to grab as much as you can and filter through. And I think the more you learn about the content, you'll start to see the questions. Wait a second. That question has nothing to do with the exam that I'm taking. Or even better, you'll be able to find out where they've answered the question, but it's the wrong answer. They're telling you the wrong thing. That will become a little more apparent to you. And you've probably seen that as you've gone along.
Sure. Yeah. And a similar question I had was, you've kind of answered a little bit about the minutia. In your slides, there's a ton of information. I've been, really trying to memorize all the pin numbers of, DDR, DDR2, SODIMM, all that stuff. And I find I get it one day and a couple of days later, I kind of forget it because it's just simple memorization. There's no real reason why there's 200 pins in this and 204 in that. But it sounds like I don't really need to get bogged down in that. Maybe it's best not to waste too much time with that and spend more time on just the general concepts.
If they were to put all of the different memory modules on a page and said, pick out or name what each one of these is, you would need to be able to do that. Mm-hmm. And knowing how many pins you might expect to see on there might help you identify that particular module. But keep in mind that section that talks about memory modules is a small section within a very large subsection that's within a much larger domain that is part of multiple domains on the exam. So I don't generally say this as a rule, but it's certainly, if you're playing the numbers game here, I also mentioned this on the Network Plus exam with subnetting, you might not get any questions about memory. You might get one question about memory modules. You might get two, but that's it. If you knew everything else that was on the exam, you're going to pass your exam anyway. So don't get bogged down in those details and wrapped around the axle, because ultimately it's such a tiny part of the exam. You could have been spending that time learning about RAID or learning about networking or learning about the troubleshooting at the command line, which are certainly larger sections and will probably the troubleshooting section is a large part of your exam. That may be a better place to spend your time.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. One last question, if you don't mind, is about when to sign up for the exam. Do you recommend waiting until you're fully ready and just like a week or two before, or do you recommend signing up kind of in advance so you have a date to kind of project to?
This is a philosophical question that there's a couple of different camps. I get freaked out at exams. I get so nervous when I'm sitting down to the exam. The adrenaline is flowing. I'm reading the first few questions and I can't even understand the language that's on the screen. I have to read it 4 times before I'm really absorbing it. I just don't do well with exams. I'm one of those kinds of people. Then once I settle down, okay, we're calm, you get in a zen, and then you can get the rest of the exam done, and I do fine. But it's that first part I get really really upset and really nervous, and I'm just freaked out. And if I was to schedule the exam a month out, that entire month would be awful for all of the people around me. So I don't do that. I wait until I am ready to sit for the exam. And then the day before or the couple weeks before, a week before, no more than a week before, I schedule the exam. In my particular geographical area, there are a few places I can go to take the exam, and it's not very busy. So I can generally get in the next day if I'm flexible with my times. Some places in the United States are very busy, so you may have to book it out farther than that. So you may want to even go online, try booking it now. Don't hit the submit button, but see what seats might be available to give you a feel. Some people like doing it a month in advance or 2 months in advance with an exact day because it motivates them. And I absolutely get that. If you're one of those people where you need that end date and it's going to drive you to the end, and I can't go out this weekend because I got to study for this thing because I booked it, then you should probably think about doing it that way. But keep in mind that you can change your schedule up to 24 hours. I think it's 24 hours before the exam. So if you're getting the day before, maybe 2 days before, and you're thinking, my studying is not going well. I've made some bad decisions. I am not ready for this exam. Just change the date. So really, there's no pressure there. You can at any time go online, click a button, change the date. You don't even have to call anyone. So don't get yourself too worried about when you book it, because you know you can always change it. It still bothers me. It still makes a mental problem for me, though.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. I appreciate the help, and all your content has been extremely valuable, very helpful.
Quite welcome. Good luck with your exams, Andrew.
Thanks. Take care.
There is a lot to worry about. That's why I don't schedule exams. It makes me crazy. I got things to worry about. I don't need to worry about that. That's the least of my concerns at this point. We'll go to, let's see what the problems are on this phone line. 773 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Good morning, sir.
Hey, how are you? What's your name?
Joe Darvish.
Hey, Joe. Thanks for calling.
Yes, sir. I kind of got into the program a little bit late, but is this video today talk about just the exam, or can I ask you a technical question?
Well, the great part about the first hour that we're out of the way with the A+, this is open phone lines. You can ask me what I had for breakfast if you wanted to, Joe.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, I hope you've had a healthy breakfast, Professor.
I did, yes.
If somebody by mistake upgrade to Windows 10 and they want to revert back to Windows 7, what would be the best approach to do that? Because for most people, Windows 10 is venturing into unknown, and it gets difficult, finding for people who are used to Windows 7. I appreciate your feedback. I hang up and hope I listen to you.
Oh, certainly. Thanks, Joe. The whole Windows 10 thing has really soured me. I have been a very big Microsoft proponent for a very long time. I have Microsoft operating systems that I use now. The video switching system that you're viewing me from, that has all these little graphics on the screen and me moving videos around, is all Windows based. I have Windows training classes, but this whole upgrade to Windows 10 thing that Microsoft has made very difficult to not upgrade from 7 to 10. They just do it for you, and there's no way around it. And they've made these dialog boxes intentionally difficult to follow. And so people are now upgrading to Windows 10. The problem is that device drivers may not be available for Windows 10. You may find problem with your application running in Windows 10 properly. So you may want to go back and downgrade to Windows 7. Fortunately, you can, and it's in your Windows 10. There is under the Start menu, go to Settings. It's in your Update and Security icon. So that's the secret one. You don't want to update, and it's not about security. You want to downgrade, but that's where it is, under Update and Security. There's an option in there for recovery. It's one of the tabs or the selections along the side of the screen. And there is a link in there that says go back to Windows 7. In fact, it's a how to gig. I think I even found a graphic to quickly bring up on the screen so you can see it. So here's the exact image. Go back to Windows 7. Under Update and Security, choose Recovery, and go back to Windows 7. So you've got a month to go back and do this. It's the easy way to get back to Windows 7, and hopefully that will solve your problem. It's right in Windows 10, so that makes it easy. You just click a button, and it goes through the process. And everybody that has told me that they've done this and the things that I've read online, it's gone very smoothly. So anybody that's had to upgrade, it's a very easy way to downgrade back. And I don't know if Microsoft is going to really be nice to play with when it comes to these Windows 10 upgrades. I'm very disappointed at the position that they've taken and the nonsensical representation that they were just they were trying to make it easy for us to go to Windows 10 by not giving us a choice. They knew exactly what they were doing. Nobody's fooled by them trying to trick people or force people to go to an operating system. I think we all know why they were trying to make that jump. And in some ways, it's not a bad reason why they were trying to do that. They just have gone about it the exact wrong way. And it's just disappointing to see that in a company. And I won't be putting Windows on any of my new systems for that very reason. I want to make the decisions about what operating system I'm using, and I want to have control over that. So that's just, it's just disappointing to see that happen. Let's go. You've been holding a long time, caller. I'm very sorry, but hi, you're here now. What's your name? You've had to listen to me rant for a while.
Hello.
Hi, what's your name?
Hi, it's Brian.
Hey, Brian. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Hey, I'm in a bit of a problem. I'm going to present the 802 exam in about 3 weeks. I'm in a rush.
Wow. Yeah, right down to the wire.
I cannot decide for the 900 version because I already made the 801 exam 4 months ago.
You're locked in.
So now, I'm stuck. I have to do it now, or I have to go through all the process again with the 900 series.
Right.
So I just bought your material 20 minutes ago.
Great, thank you.
I'm checking it out, and it's great. It has a lot of information. It's what I'm looking for because all the books I checked, they have all the information combined, the 801 and 802, so hardware and software. So it's hard to find something specific only for the software part of the exam.
It's so true.
Now So now I'm looking for some recommendations besides your material. I know about the labs. Unfortunately, I don't have the money to pay $99, so you need to know I'm calling you from Mexico. So $99 here is a lot of money. So
$99 here is a lot of money.
Other alternatives. Yeah. We are in a very hard situation, but hey, the $10 for that reading material, it's a great deal for me. So
it's true. The books out there are a little bit of a challenge. That's one of the reasons I really like the GTS Learning books, and I think I should probably tell people about that more, is that they have a book for 901, and they have a book for 902. They have a book for 801. They have a book for 802. So everything in the book is just focused on that exam, which I really like. But a lot of the other books you'll find have at least got in the front or the back a summary of the exam objectives, and then they tell you what chapter and what page those particular objectives are covered. So you can almost do it backwards. You can almost go to the exam objectives cross-reference list, go to the 902, or in your case, the 802 Windows XP, find out where that is on the page, and then read just that part, and then go back to the list and kind of use that to jump back and forth around the book. And it does jump around a lot when you do that, but at least you'd be stuck in really focusing on those specific objectives.
Well, yeah, that's a good idea. I'll try to do that. Last time I did with the 801, I read the Mike Myers book, and it was great. Plus your videos, it was excellent, but it was not in 3 weeks. So now we'll have
that's a big book
to do something different.
It's true. There's some other books out there that are really good. I've read through, and I haven't done this in a while, but one of the other two that I've read through before, the GTS Learning books, obviously, the Dummies book, the A+ for Dummies, I really liked. I think maybe it spoke to me. And then I've gone through the Cybex book as well, which was okay. So you've got a number of choices to go with there. And I think if you go and cross-reference, at least it would kind of focus you a little bit more, because you're going to have to go through a lot of content in a very short period of time.
Yeah. I already have a plan. It's hard for me because I have my engineering career going on, and I have to work at the same time. I provide tech support to the T-Mobile users in U.S. over the phone. Good part is that I work from home the full time, so that's an advantage. But
nice. Yeah, that does
Hopefully
help.
will be
It's all
enough.
about time constraints then, and reading when you're sitting down at dinner. You're now still reading your book, or you're watching the video, or when you're traveling, or when you're, every moment now until the end of the month, you're going to want to spend pulling that information into your brain, because you've got a lot that you're going to have to go through. You've got to go through security. You got to go through the all of the operating systems, XP, Vista, and Windows 7. You've got the troubleshooting section that covers everything from both the 801 as well, that you've got to now, of course, know the troubleshooting for. So, yeah, you got a lot to go through before the 30th, but it's absolutely doable. There was someone in my chat room who about 2 months ago, sat down, started studying for his A+, and was able to get through both exams in 2 weeks. So he was starting from sort of like you. He was relatively technical. He understood, had a very good foundation. So it was easy for him to apply those topics, but he just studied constantly to be able to do it. So it's doable. It's just a matter of making sure you have the right time set aside for it.
Yeah, I would think it's better to complete it now, because I already checked the topic list for the 900 exams, and there's way more information on the 900 series than it is right now for the 800. So I think it will be better just to do it in 3 weeks, to at least to give it a try. I mean, my company is paying for it, so.
I think it's absolutely
let's go ahead
doable,
and give it
Brian.
a try.
I think you should be able to get through all of that content in a month and get the exam done. Maybe give yourself a couple of extra days. That way, if the first exam doesn't go well, you got a chance to go back and reschedule it. But I don't think you're gonna have a problem. I think you've got enough time. It's all laid out for you. You've got all the right resources. It's now just a matter of applying it and getting that into your brain.
Okay, well, thank you, Professor, and thanks for all that material you provided for free, and the one we have to pay for, which is not a lot. I'm sure that I speak for all of us when I said that we do appreciate all that you do for us.
Thank you, Brian. I'm glad to provide it. Good luck with your exams.
Thank you.
There is absolutely doable. Absolutely doable. You can do that. I'm sorry there's a lot of people that have been waiting on hold. I apologize for the delays. A number of you have dropped off, but we're getting through them now. They're getting a little smaller. In fact, we're now at the 817 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Hello, my name is Alan.
Hey, Alan. Thanks for holding for 10 minutes there. Geez, sorry about that. I talk too much, apparently.
Not a problem. No. It's everything you say we need to hear. It's good information.
What can we do for you, sir?
Well, Professor, I just wanted to say thank you very much for the videos and the course notes, all that good stuff. It's helping out tremendously. I, like many other wannabe A+ technicians, plan to take my test within 2 weeks.
Nice.
So cramming like crazy right now.
That's sort of a common story as the older exam is being retired. It's something now I've gone through. I did the 600 series exam, the 700, the 800, now the 900. So this is the third transition on A+, and of course we've had transitions on Network Plus, Security Plus. This is so normal that it's just common to see that happen at this time of the process. So I'm glad you're cramming it in though, because you're definitely coming up at the end.
Yes, that's absolutely. I will say one thing though. Windows 10, yes, has 1,000 problems. I'm not an advocate of it. I do use it, but they definitely need to go back to a user-friendly Windows 7-esque environment. It's so difficult to navigate Windows 10. It seems like a step backwards, in my opinion.
There's many challenges that Microsoft is going to have regarding 10. Not only the upgrade process, but once you have it on your system, it is a different operating system. It's a different way of doing things. Yes. They sort of blended in Windows 8 with Windows 7, and now you have Windows 10. So now you've taken something that people liked and combined it with something people didn't like, and now you've got something that's kind of So it's going to be either a transition time for all of us to figure it out, or maybe eventually, and I think this is what we're all hoping, that Microsoft will actually do what we've been telling them to do and create the operating system that we would like them to have. So we'll have to see what they do next.
Well, one can only hope,
One can only hope.
All right, sir. Well, thank you very much for answering my call. It was great to talk to you. I will be watching many more of your videos. And like I said, I already purchased your course notes, which have been invaluable.
Thank you so much. And it's invaluable to me too. It helps keep everything going. We have many servers that we're running, and they all, for some reason, cost money. So I have to pay other people to keep my site up and running. And all of this goes back to keeping that. It's a nice circle, and I appreciate the support.
Anytime, mate. Thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing your videos.
Good luck with your exam.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. There's a lot you're going to have to go through in a month, but I think if you parse it out, it's doable. I was thinking the other day about creating a schedule, something that you could do and get in 30 days, in 60 days, in 45 days, or whatever it happens to be. I think it's entirely possible. Let's go to 661. Are you there, caller? What's your name? Are you there, caller? I hear you. I hear you moving things around. Say hello. Hi. I hear you, sort of. What's your name? Oh, you're breaking up a little bit there. Are you there? Try it again. I'll stick you back in the queue. You're only holding a few minutes, so maybe that will help. And that let's then jump over to the 781 area code. Are you there, caller? Maybe not. No, dropped off. Let's try another one. Let's do 773. Are you there, caller?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. What's your name?
George Avish. I had the pleasure of talking to you a few minutes ago.
Oh, yes, you were.
Thank you, sir. Now, as I listened to your description of Windows 10, would you think Linux would be a good option for people to use? Because this looks like Windows 12 is going to be a combination of all those Windows 10 and the rest of them. So what would be your best approach to this so that people will have not so much headaches like this anymore?
It's certainly an alternative. So the question he's asking is, what if Windows doesn't work? What does work? Is Linux a good alternative to that? And I think right now you've got a lot of choices. You've got, and in fact, Microsoft's Windows, it's a tough one to come off because there's so many applications and games and utilities that use Windows. A lot of businesses run on Windows with Active Directory. Active Directory is phenomenal. It is the thing that keeps all of our companies able to work with these large implementations of people's desktops and systems where we can completely manage and automate what's happening with all of these computers everywhere in the organization. No other operating system has anything that even comes close to what Active Directory can do for a company. So, of course, if we're running Windows at work, we might want to run Windows at home. And I think that's where the value of Windows really is for the most part. Now, if you're a gamer, the value of Windows is that there are a lot of games that are run in the Windows operating system as well. But you've got certainly Linux has now gotten a nice foothold in some very easy to use operating systems. And if you're somebody who just needs to be able to surf the net, you just want to send some emails, you want a nice browsing experience, you want a nice graphical display, and now you've got even many advanced applications that you can use in the Linux operating system on your desktop. It's now really a nice, viable desktop system, something where you can grab Ubuntu, stick it on somebody's machine, and now they're up and running with their very first Linux system that works extremely well on most commercial pieces of hardware. I obviously am a big Linux user because if you're on my website right now, you have passed through multiple Linux machines to get to me. And my Linux machines have other Linux machines on the back end that are communicating back and forth to finally present my web page to you. So I'm an enormous Linux user, but I'm also, my desktop and everything I'm using here is all Windows, not Windows and not Linux. I've got now Mac OS in most places, although I've got Windows here on my video switcher. Why does it have my head up on the screen? That looks awful. So here's my video switcher. You can't even see it here, where I've got Windows running. I've got Mac OS in other places. I've got iOS that's down in front of me. And I've got Windows. I've got Linux obviously running on the back end for everything else in the website. So I like all of them. I don't have any particular one that I use over another. My standard desktop, though, has been Mac OS for a long time because I do so much video editing. It's the operating system that I feel does a much better job at the media production than any of the other operating systems. And we can all argue about the pluses and minuses of the other things that are out there, but that's just how it has worked for me. But I put Linux on relatives' computers and said, well, you've got an older Windows computer. Why don't we put Linux on it? And now suddenly you have a working machine with modern software that can do a lot of the nice things that the newest browsers do without bogging down your system. And that's worked well for them. So I think absolutely you should consider doing something like that. And they've made it so easy to install Linux on people's computers install it side by side with Windows, upgrade from a Windows system. Why wouldn't you try that? I think it's a great idea.
Yes, Professor. Thank you very much. Also, which, as you know, there is some flavors of Linux called Mint 17, Mint 13.
Yeah.
Which one would be easier for a person who wants to get into Linux?
I think the Mint distribution of Linux. Why did I call it Minix? The Mint distribution is an exceptional one. I think whatever one you go with, there are different distributions that work well in different scenarios. So there's some distributions that make very good servers, and there's some distributions that make very good desktops. Mint is certainly a very good desktop version of a Linux distribution. Ubuntu is another very good desktop. I think you can't go wrong between either one of those if you're planning to install it on your system. And I've installed and run both of those, and I like them both. So it just depends on what makes sense for you and which one you like the most. And try them both. Why not give them a shot and see which one really works best for the type of hardware and the type of user interface that you like.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much for your information. Have a great day.
Thank you, sir. You too. There's I have a love-hate relationship with Linux. I go back and forth over whether I like it or whether I don't. I love the operating system. I love that it's available to everybody. I obviously extensively use it. I built an entire business on the Linux operating system because that's what my website and my database server and my load balancer and my reverse proxy and all the other things I'm using, that's what they all run on. I have a problem with the business practices of Linux development, specifically kernel development. I don't like a work environment where there's a lot of negativity. And unfortunately, that particular part of the Linux community is very negative. And I hate that. Why do we have to be that way? But that just seems that's how it's worked out. It's just not a great situation to be in. But if you can kind of put that to the side, that's more of a philosophical discussion as well, because some people like having that type of environment. Some people think that's just fine. It's very motivating. I think it's a bunch of people not being nice, and I just don't like it. I don't like that. I don't like that negativity. I am a vessel of love. I am filling the world with sunshine and unicorns. I don't want any of those other things. It's about time to go to another call, isn't it? 985 area code. Are you there, caller?
Hey, man, how you doing?
Hey,
my name is Lee. How are you today?
Hey, Lee. I'm very good, sir. What can we do for you?
Well, I am taking the 802 for the third time next week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and a buddy of mine recommended your videos, and he took the 801, 802, and he passed both of them. I feel like the 802 is a much harder exam. I want to know your opinion on the CompTIA CertMaster software, because I feel like that software doesn't really prepare you for the exam, even though CompTIA says that it does. Like it has most of the objectives and all that, but the way that the questions are is like nowhere like the exam. What do you think about CertMaster?
It's a difficult situation that CompTIA has put themselves into. CompTIA themselves is a very large organization that does more than just certification. They're a very large industry organization that does a lot of other things as well, although certainly a very large component of what they do revolves around the certifications. And I am not a CompTIA partner. None of my products are CompTIA certified. It takes tens of thousands of dollars to be able to do that. And it just doesn't make sense to have a free video series that I would then have to pay somebody tens of thousands of dollars to tell me that it's good when I don't have to do that. There's a lot of things happening there. But what CompTIA has is a lot of partners that do have a lot of materials that they've created that they get certified by CompTIA to be able to sell. And that's kind of been the traditional way they've done it in the past. But most recently, CompTIA has realized that a lot of the revenue, this is what I think. No, I have no clue about this. So this is pure speculation, and you can put the word allegedly behind all of this because I have no direct knowledge of any of this. This is just me from the outside like anybody else looking in. But it seems that for the last number of years, they've started to now sell their own products. They've realized that they aren't selling their own books yet, but they've certainly delved into the idea of selling their own study products. And I think you're finally seeing the culmination of this with the CompTIA CertMaster product. I don't know who develops this product. I haven't spent a lot of time looking at the intricacies of this particular business arrangement that they have, whether they are developing it themselves in-house or whether they have a third party create this product for them. I like the concept of this product. From what I've seen, I haven't spent a lot of time on it. I've never downloaded it and directly used it. I've watched their videos on it, and I've heard what other people have told me. And I understand you can download it and try parts of it for free. I don't know. But from what I've seen so far, I love the concept where they're asking you questions, you're answering, and then it's changing what it's presenting to you based on how you're answering these questions. If you got it down cold, it doesn't bother asking you a lot of more details about it. If you're missing parts of it, it starts giving you other things that you could learn. And ultimately, the idea is to also wrap around some other content so that you're also learning while you're answering these questions. Great idea. But I think a lot of the criticism that I have heard is very similar to what you just said, Lee, which is I went and took my exam, and a lot of the things on the exam weren't in the CertMaster, or the things in the CertMaster were emphasizing other parts of the exam that never showed up on there. And that could have been that it just happened to be the random set of questions that somebody got on their exam, because you can't ask everything on a single exam setting. There's only 90 questions maximum that you would ever possibly get. But I keep seeing these over and over and over again. I've seen other people that have said they had a good experience with CertMaster and it really helped them. But like anything else, I think the real answer is going to be don't just study from one particular source. Don't just study from my videos. Don't just study from a single book. Don't just study from a single online or electronic piece of software. Try to pull in as much as possible, because I'm going to give you a perspective of what I think is going to be emphasized on the exam, which might be different than what somebody else's perspective is of what's emphasized. And the real purpose, the real value is going to be combining all of these things together to give you the best possible score you're going to get on the exam when you walk in the door. Because ultimately, no single study material is going to give you 100% of everything you would need to know and how you like to learn it. And I'm saying that as someone who has a training course. I tell everybody all the time, don't just watch my videos. Are you crazy? Go get a good book. Get multiple books. Get a good Q&A. Get multiple Q&As. Study as much as you can from many sources. Ultimately, I guess my too long didn't read answer is it can't hurt to go through the CertMaster, but I wouldn't rely on it as a single source or even a major source going into exam based on what I'm hearing.
And I think the 802 is it's a good exam. After taking it a few times, I finally get what they're asking me.
Right.
You have a better idea. After taking it a few times, you have a better idea about what the questions are, how you tackle them. Because there are some questions on the 802 that you don't know, because there could be in that 4 answer column there could be a right answer, but the problem is some of those answers in that test they look like they could be the right answers. So you have to constantly be thinking about the situation. You have to put yourself in that environment and just try to figure out what you would do.
Especially the ones they ask you, what's the first thing you would do? Well, gosh, they're giving you 4 different things. All of these I should be doing, but which one is really the first one? And now you have to figure that out based on the troubleshooting process and what you would expect to give you the most amount of information in the least amount of time.
Yeah, that is definitely true. Thank you so much, Professor Messer.
Good luck, Lee.
And you have a good day.
Thank you, sir. You
Thank
too.
you.
I hate those questions that ask you, what should you do first? Well, first, I should get a cup of coffee. That's not one of the options. So obviously this question is a trick question. Let's go to 559 area code. Are you there, caller?
Hi, Professor. How are you today?
Hey, I'm doing fine. What can we do for you?
Thank you. My name is Husam. I'm really just want to say thank you, not for everything, but for every second you spent for us, for everything. I passed 802 last week.
Oh, great.
And I appreciate what you did for us.
Congratulations. And I'm happy to do it. I'm glad to hear it. Well, what is your next step then? If you finish the A+, are you planning, is there a job or are you planning to get another certification?
I tried to study the next week for the Network Plus because I'm feel good with Network Plus. Yeah, because this automatically renew the A Plus.
Yep.
But yeah, for this reason, I will study for the Network Plus.
Makes sense to me.
See, I bought your note. It's very helpful. Thank you again for Network Plus.
That's great to hear. Congratulations. Thank you for the support of the website and congratulations on your A+ certification.
Thank you, Professor. Have a nice day. Thank you.
Take care. I love those stories. I can't get enough. You can always go to the top or bottom of my website. You can click contact us. I read every single thing that comes through. Let's go to the 937 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Oh, hi. My name's Gerhard.
Hey, thanks for calling. Yeah, picked you up quick there. We're getting through some calls now. Other people have dropped off, I'm afraid. I apologize about that. What can we do for you?
I just had a quick question. You mentioned this GTS Learning website.
Yes.
Do they offer stuff for Cisco, the CCNT and CCNA certifications?
I've talked with them about this before because obviously I don't have at least I don't have yet any type of Cisco type of materials for something like the CCENT or the CCNA or any of the other CCNA type things. But I've talked with GTS Learning about this. They go, oh, yeah, we have live labs for that stuff. But I've never talked with them about it before. It might be worth going to their website and finding out and sending them a note. They're great people to work with. I was sending emails back and forth to them today, preparing for this to make sure I had the latest live labs and latest books available to show you. And they're great folks to work with. So if you have questions about anything, leave a note there, ask them about that piece. If you're having any problems or questions, contact me. Say I tried to contact them, or I didn't hear back, or I missed their email, or more clarification. I can always work that on my side as well.
Okay, sounds good. And will you offer Server Plus study group eventually?
It comes up from time to time, Server Plus specifically, and I don't have any direct, immediate plans for Server Plus. It's on a list, but it's kind of low in the list. There's not quite the demand for it that I would like to see quite yet to be able to devote to creating either a study group for it, or to have a study group, I really need the content to go behind it. So I like to have the course already completed, some course notes. I've got videos created, and then it makes sense to do study groups. And it takes, whenever I choose a course, the production of a video course can take anywhere between 3 to 5 or 6 months, depending on the topic and depending on whether I'm starting from scratch or whether it's an update to an existing set of materials. So it's a big investment of time, and that's me sitting in the studio every day, working on these things, creating the content that needs to go behind it, and finally shooting the videos. So it's no minor thing to decide what do I do next. And just in the last 24 hours, people have asked me to do the new Cisco CCNT and ostensibly the new CCNA when it's released. Server Plus, now from you. I've gotten people asking me about Microsoft courses, and obviously there's updates to the CompTIA materials that are coming later in the year. I think for Security Plus, it needs to be updated near the end of the year. So it's no minor thing. That's sort of inside baseball, and I'm kind of taking it down a road of where my head thinks about these things. But unfortunately, Server Plus just isn't high enough in the list to make it out of that group of things that I'm working on, at least not at the moment. If suddenly there's a lot of people that suddenly show up on my site and say, I need Server Plus, quick. And there's a lot of people asking about it. Well, that certainly changes my mind about it. So it's not that what you're saying is in vain, but I'll need a lot more people telling me about it to get to where I want to create a course on Server Plus.
I see. But I see a lot of it carries over from your A+ videos anyway. So
it does. There's a little bit of overlap. And I've looked at, there is the Server Plus. There's also one prior to A+ that CompTIA does, which is the IT Essentials. So I thought maybe I should create content on that. So you're right. There's overlap in all of those. And the Cisco, the CCENT has huge overlap to the Network Plus. There's a lot more Cisco stuff in there. The Venn diagram is not as overlapping as you might think, but there is quite a bit that's already there. So you're right. There's a lot of work that's already been done. You just need to do a little bit more. But it's that little bit more that turns into months of work, and that's what I have to think about when I'm doing a video.
That's understandable.
Sure.
Okay. And there's no group next week? Because I'm already got my A+, Network Plus, Security Plus already.
Nice.
So, yeah, I'm just looking at other projects now.
Nice. No group next week. I have plans already for that week, so I'm splitting it up. It's a little different than most months where I usually go back to back to back. But yeah, nothing next Wednesday. But then the next 2 Wednesdays, we've got study groups all set aside.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks for calling.
You're welcome.
There is a lot to go through with the Security Plus, the Network Plus, the A+. Just to keep those going is a lot. Okay, well, it's in the chat room. If you say Server Plus over and over and over again, see, it needs to come from different people, not just the same person. Because in the chat room, it says Server Plus, Server Plus, Server Plus, Server Plus, but it's all one person saying that. But you're right. It needs to be everybody who tells me that, though, goes on the list. I'm like, okay, more people are asking about that particular thing. What I recommend the CCNA in the chat room, Rob is asking, the Cisco is Cisco Network Associate certification is a very good one. And it's well established and employers know about it. If you're going into networking at all, the Cisco certifications tend to be a staple of the networking field. They've done a very, very, very good job at creating a very comprehensive set of certifications. They're good certifications. You learn a lot with their certifications. Even if you aren't getting a networking job, you learn everything you need to know about managing and setting up these Cisco devices. There's a lot of command line. There's a lot of hands-on. They're a great set. They're what you would expect to get from a manufacturer's certification exam. So whether you're taking VMware, Cisco, Microsoft, anybody else, you're getting a lot of hands-on, a lot of specifics about that particular product from that particular company. But one thing I like about the Cisco certifications is that they're also teaching you about the technologies behind it. So you're learning a lot about how spanning tree protocol works between switches. That knowledge you can apply to any switch in the world because spanning tree protocol is a standard. You're learning about OSPF and how it operates, which you can now apply to any router in the world because that's how OSPF is as a standard. It's a great set of certifications. I like it. And they've just updated the CCENT. I don't know if they've updated the second one yet, but that's certainly going to happen any moment now if they haven't. And so it's a brand new set of exams. That always interests me. Whenever there's been an update to the exam and now they're brand new, that interests me because now I could create videos and they'd be good for at least 3 years or so, which is good for me. I don't want to create a set of videos. If I created a set of Cisco videos and got them out last month and now they change everything this month, that's not good business. I would cry. I'd be very sad for quite a long period of time if they did that. So I have to look at that too. When is the next set of these exams going to be available? Because now I can create that content. My content, it's very interesting. It's very different than content you might create in other ways. Like let's take, for example, pictures of your family. You're at an event, you take pictures of your family. Those pictures get more valuable over time. And they are more and more and more valuable as time goes on, and they never get less valuable. My training materials are valuable from day one. It's a flat line with their value up until, let's take the A+, till June 30th, and then they go to zero value. So it's a weird world I live in where I'm creating content that is only going to be good for a very particular length of time, and then it's not good at all. It's relatively worthless. And so I have to think about that. How much time can I put on the clock for this content? If I'm going to spend months creating it, how long will it really be available? Because that's important to me. Because behind the scenes, there's obviously a business running. I need viewers. I need people to watch the videos. I need course notes to help support the website. I need to make an offline version of the course for people that can't get online. I need MP3 files so people can take it and listen to it when they're traveling. And then all the other things that go along with it. So, and there's the expenses associated with that and having those people watch it. It's a weird world, this whole internet thing. I could create a course on creating a course that I think would be remarkable. It would be huge and painful to go through. Let's go to the phones before I lose all of my voice. The 781 area code. Are you there, caller?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, what's your name?
My name's Brian.
Hey, Brian. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
I had a question for you.
Hit me.
All right. So I'm a student at high school, and we're learning about information technology and going for A+ certifications. So I was wondering what inspired you to do what you do and make these videos.
This is a great thing. You don't have a lot of high schools doing this kind of content, and it's something that me and Mrs. Professor Messer sit around quite a long time, being in this business and trying to figure out what we should be teaching people to make them have a career, to give them something that they can enjoy doing and support their family. Because ultimately that's where you will be getting eventually. You're in high school right now, and the responsibilities are something that will simply get bigger and bigger over time. And you want to have a job and a career that can help you fit into the responsibilities that you're getting. And we often see these stories that come out about coding. And for some reason, they've told all the high school and colleges, we need everybody learning how to program. Everybody needs to learn how to code. And we sit around scratching our heads like, what in the world are you talking about? Hardly anybody needs to know how to code. There's no good reason that we should all need to know how to code. I don't know what that's about. Now, I get behind the scenes, of course. There are things you learn about logic and learn about the thinking process. I get that. But you don't need to learn how to code to be successful with computers. In fact, you need the exact opposite of that, which is how do you keep these things running and what they're doing with it. And so our perspective has always been that the information technology side is much more practical than the computer science side. And of course, we can have a big blowout between those two sides, and we can all fight about that as much as we want. But you can see by the number of people in IT that it takes to run these systems that it's incredibly important. But let's get back to your question. I kind of went on a diversion there. So I got involved with technology at a very young age. The computers were the home computers. I was young in high school at about the time home computers were created. So that was a set of technology. Up to that point, games were mechanical. Adding machines were mechanical. There was no real electronics to be seen, at least not at the consumer level. Large companies had computers, but nobody at home had a computer. And then Radio Shack, of all places, these days you wouldn't even know it, but Radio Shack was the leader. They were the innovator in providing computers to people's homes. They had the first set of extremely popular home computers that were deployed in everybody's schools. They were everywhere. And so that's where I started getting interested, and I started doing programming. I started doing some coding. It was okay, but that was really the few things you could do with it. But I was more interested in how these things work, and when they stop working, how to work on them. And so I realized at that point, once I got out of high school, I wanted to do something with technology, but I didn't want to be a programmer. But even then, I went to college, and I got into the business school at Florida State. and I went into management. And at that time, there was actually a management information system major at the college. But all it really was is they gave you management classes and sent you to programming classes. Again, there was no connection between the information technology side of it. How do you keep the network running? What are these protocols going over the connection? How do I get a web server to talk properly to a database server? How do I maintain and monitor that connection? How do I know if the performance is well? How can I view the protocols and understand what's going back and forth? That was the part that really interested me. And so when I got out of college, I got a job working for a very small computer company. I say computer company. They were a company that sold computers in South Miami. And that small company just so happened to have the contract for the entire county, at the time Dade County, now Miami-Dade County. That was a massive number of computers to support and maintain. So I got to travel around, meet people, see what type of computers they were using, upgrade their memory, upgrade their hard drives, understand the technologies. I got trained on the hardware, so I know how to work with it. And I just started building on that. That led me to a job at an insurance company working at their help desk. That led me into a different part of that company doing desktop support and installing Windows and really deploying Windows for the very first time. And that got me into the networking side. That got me to a security role. So all of these things sort of built on each other. I didn't understand where the path was going to be. And there's no way you're going to know where the path is going to be. When I was at that point at that insurance company, my first real corporate job working at a help desk, there was no internet. There was no online video. So I couldn't have ever imagined at that point that I would have created a company that was all focused around creating video content and putting it on the internet that anyone in the world could see. That would be ridiculous. And so it's just as ridiculous now for us to predict what you will be doing in 20 years because we haven't created that yet. We haven't built it. We don't know what it is. We may be all sitting around with virtual reality masks on. We don't know. But there may be some part of that we can build on. There was no Twitter. There was no Facebook. There was no any of those things. And so you sort of just ride it. It's just a river. You put the boat in the river. You kind of follow. What kind of boat do you like? I like the boat that does Mac operating system. I like the boat that does networking. And you just kind of follow the boat, and then the river takes you different places. And you just kind of go with it. And that's kind of where technology takes you. And I think it's one of the benefits of technology is that you're not just making widgets the rest of your life. You're not just doing this one thing. It's not like I love my accountant and I rely on my accountant, but he is in the world of accounting and taxes, and that's what he does. With IT, I feel like I've got more choices. I could go do database things. I could do things in a data center. I could do desktop management. I could learn all about servers. I can know everything there is about the network. I can create content that sits on all of those. You just never know where that's going to go. And I never knew where it was going to go. So I think that's where you have to kind of focus your efforts on doing what you enjoy with technology. And I think if you do that, the rest of it's going to just show up and you're going to follow that path. It makes it very easy at that point. And I love what I do. So that couldn't have worked out better. Just keep doing the thing that you're passionate about and do it really, really well. And people are going to notice that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thanks for answering my question.
Absolutely. Thanks for calling, Brian.
No problem.
There is that's one of the things we talk about all the time, the Mrs. Professor Messer and me, is that how did we get to this? Because now we have kids that now are on that same path. They've now graduated high school or they're in the middle of college and they're trying to figure out, where do we go from there? How do we impart that to them? How do we tell them where to go? Because the high school will tell you one thing about, here's what you need to be successful. College will tell you another thing about, here's what you need to be successful. I don't necessarily agree with what they say. I think there's a little bit of truth in both of those, but I think a lot of the practical sense is getting out and doing the thing that you enjoy. Do you want to build your own company? Do you want to work for someone else with a particular kind of technology? Do you want to work for a really big company? Do you want to work for a really small company? Do you want to work for a an organization that is a nonprofit that has a particular view of the world that you agree with. There's something very noble about that and something very powerful about that. And technology allows you to do any of those things. You just need to focus on that and go with that direction. Oh, Oculus Rift, they're now talking about in the chat room. We got our Vive here about a week ago. So I've been playing around with the HTC Vive here, and it is phenomenal. Just remarkable. I had no idea. I've worn, VR before. You've gone places and you worked with VR and you played around with it and you had it on your head and there's games and other things. I just really had no idea. So very remarkable. Can't get enough of it. I'm looking for some really good games now for the Vive. There are already some really good ones out there, and they're just getting better. Just a lot of fun with those pieces. Well, with that, we've made it through the calls and through another hour and 10 minutes worth of things. And my voice can tell. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I think that brings us to the end of yet another study group. It has been a good one. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Thanks for hanging in through the second hour. Thanks for your phone calls. Thanks for your messages. Thanks for everything you do throughout the month. And we'll see you again on the next one. Thanks for joining us. Oh, don't forget to go to the website, to the calendar, professormesser.com/calendar, to see when all of the other study groups might be. And maybe we'll have you call in for the next one. Thanks for joining us. And we'll see you next time on the study group. Thanks, everyone.